Hi everyone, I hope you are enjoying the wreath that you have on your doors, whether you've bought one or you've made one yourself this year. This week we're going to talk about how you can keep your wreath looking fresh through the whole festive season. Wreaths like this one here on my outside door shouldn't need any care or attention throughout the festive season. It's cold out here and the foliage will last well into the new year. But it depends on where you live and how warm it is, and it's always worth having a check to see how your wreath is doing. So to do this, just simply unhook your wreath from its peg on the door and feel how heavy it is. If it feels light, then its chances are that the moss has started to dry out in the foliage, so you'll want to give it a little bit of water, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Alternatively, you can actually just sit it on your grass overnight, especially if it hasn't got a protective back on it like this. If it's just moss that's exposed at the back, just sit it on your lawn and it'll soak up any moisture from the grass that's come overnight. But you have to be sure that there's not going to be any animals around or anything that is going to destroy your wreath if you do that. But you can also water it inside, so we'll talk about that in a little minute. And we'll just pop that back on there. If you have got a wreath that is on an inside door, then you're going to have to be a bit more careful about checking it. So every few days, have a look and see if it's drying out at all. And if you have table arrangements and wreaths inside, then you'll definitely probably have to check those every couple of days, and you might need to give them a water throughout the festive season. Your wreath table arrangement will last for 1 to 2 weeks inside. It depends how hot your house is, but you can do lots of things to keep it looking fresh for longer. The first thing you need to do is you need to check it every few days. So lift the candle out, lift the wreath up and see whether it feels light or not. If it feels light, the moss has probably started to dry out. You can also just press the foliage, press the moss with your fingers, and if that's dry to the touch, then it probably needs a drink. And this is a really easy thing that you can do without ruining your wreath, but just gives it a freshen up and will give that desperately needed water to the moss and the foliage to keep it lasting for longer. So what you want to do is just fill your sink up with about 1 inch of water. So that's my sink filled with about 1 inch of water, and I'm just going to place my wreath inside it. Now the idea here is that the water will soak up into the moss and to the foliage, but it's not so deep that it's going to go over the top of your decorations. So the cones and the cinnamon and the berries and the dried oranges, they should be not sitting in water. Should just be that lower level of moss and foliage. So let it just sit there for 10 minutes to soak up all that nice water. And once it's had its good soak, then just lift it out of the water and pop it up onto your draining board and leave it to drain fully there. And then you can pop it back on the table when it's dry underneath, or you can just pop it on a towel to soak up any excess moisture and then pop it back on your table. Putting that wreath back down on the table now, it felt a lot heavier, so that's good. I know that the moss will be nice and damp now, and so will the foliage, and that'll help keep the wreath lasting for longer. There's some other things that you can do as well. So if you have your wreath on a table like this is probably in one of the heated rooms in your home in the winter. So in between uses, so when you're not having dinners, maybe take it and put it into another room in the house that's not heated, or put it out into a cold garage, somewhere that's protected. You don't want to put it outside in case animals get it or it's really frosty and ruins it, but just somewhere that's unheated and away from your central heating and direct sunlight, and that'll keep it lasting for longer, and you can bring it back out and put it on your dinner table at dinner times. So another thing you can do if you don't want to sit your wreath in water in the sink is that you can take a spray bottle and you can just finely mist the greenery. And what you want to do here is just mist the greenery, not any of the decorations, because the oranges are dried and things and they'll start to get a little bit soggy. So just very carefully on the lower foliage and moss, give it a bit of water like this. And I'm doing this on the draining board again so that it can drain away any excess water. And before I put it back on the table, I'll make sure it's nice and dry underneath, or I'll put it on a protective surface so it doesn't ruin the wood. Okay, so here's a quick recap for you. So check your outdoor wreaths once a week. You don't need to do it any more than this, but check your indoor wreaths a bit more often, every couple of days. If your wreaths feel like they're light or dry to the touch, then they're going to need some water to keep them fresh. Fill your sink up with 1 inch of water and soak your wreath in it. making sure that the water is just on that foliage and moss and not on your decorations on the top. After about 10 minutes, drain it on your draining board and then make sure that it's dry on the bottom before you put it back onto your table or put it onto a protective surface or a plate. Or instead of putting it in the sink, you can spray it with water from a bottle just on the moss or the greenery to freshen it up. And the other thing you can do is to keep your indoor wreaths cool. So if you've got a table wreath, you can take it away off the table and put it in an unheated room or a cold garage in between uses to prevent it drying out from the heating in the house. And just bring it out when you're having nice family dinners all together, and that will just keep it looking its best through the festive season. I just want to say a big thank you to everyone that has subscribed to my channel this year. It's been fantastic having you along to share in my flower growing journey, and also it's great sharing between us in the comment section so we can learn from each other about our gardening successes and failures. Looking forward to next year. I've got lots of ideas about what we're going to do in the garden and things that we're going to grow that I will be sharing with you on my weekly videos. Have a lovely Christmas, and I'll see you in the new year.